Good morning, everyone. Got a bunch of people on. I'm going to give it maybe another minute just to let some other folks join before we start. So we'll get started in about 1.5 more minutes.
Sounds good.
Hi, Stacy. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to the webinar for registration forms in our new platform through EMGrants. I will say we are recording this, so if you have to jump off or something happens, it will be on our website probably late this afternoon, early tomorrow, and on our YouTube channel. So a couple things before we start. These registration forms have a little bit shorter timeline because we got a late start and we have to get a report to the FCC. These will be due June the 12th at 11:59. So that's not too far off, but we hope the process will be easier and allow you to get these done sooner. So June the 12th, which is a Sunday. The website is the same as the grants. If you've had grants before, then you've been to the website. It's ok.emgrants.com. And we're going to go through step by step through registration. And hopefully that'll be a little bit more understandable, and then through the forms themselves. So we'll stop and pause for questions. So if you have questions, kind of hold on to those and we'll get to those. We'll make sure that everybody has their questions answered and everyone hopefully leaves a little bit more understanding of what the process is.
Real quick, Stacy. One thing just for formatting on the WebEx, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a button called Layout. If you click Layout and you move your attendees over to the right-hand side, it makes the presentation bigger. And then also right above the presentation that she has now with EMGrants, there's a plus or minus to make that screen bigger so you can see it better. So change your layout to move everybody to the right, and then use your plus and minus to make the screen bigger. If you're old like me, that's what you got to do. So it helped me considerably. Thanks, Stacy. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hold on. I have to unmute again. I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'll unmute when we break for questions. You can put something in the chat if something's amiss. We will be watching that. The first step is going to be to come to EMGrants, which is this homepage here. This is what you'll see. The first thing you need to do is request access. So it's kind of confusing because you say register, but you're actually just requesting access to be able to access the forms in EMGrants. So once you click on register, as soon as mine wants to work, there we go. It brings you to this page. Now there are two types of requesting access. You'll fill out this information the same as you would, nothing amiss here. When you get down to please select your user type, this is always going to be the same for everybody. You're representing an applicant organization. So that could be Danny Manuel representing Pontotoc County, the city of Ada. That's not going to change. An applicant organization. So this is going to correspond with this request up here. You can either be a new user, this meaning your agency has not logged in to EMGrants before. So that means that when you click here under applicant organization, that means that your agency doesn't show up in any form in this big list. So if you're, let's say, Adair County, they have a lot of options because they've had grants. So if you are with Adair County, you're going to click on Adair County. Even though you haven't logged into EMGrants before, you've never requested access before, Adair County has. So they're not going to be a new user. They're going to be an existing user. So the first kind of big step is to click here under applicant organization and see if your organization is here. If you can't find it, if they're not listed in some form, whether that's, I'm not even sure, there's so many here, it's hard to kind of single one out. But if you were Payne County, but you didn't see the town of Yale, and that's where your PSAP was, you would be a new user. But if you saw the city of Altus in Jackson County, then you would be an existing user. So the first step is to kind of determine that. If you're going to be a new user, meaning your agency has not requested access to EMGrants before, you're going to click on new user requesting access. Still going to be a representative for the applicant organization. That doesn't change. Here, because your PSAP is not here, you're going to create a new applicant organization. So that opens up a couple more questions other than before. So if you're a new applicant organization, you're going to want to name that applicant organization. So let's just name that, we'll do it ours. So we'll be the authority because they're not in there. And the county we're in is Oklahoma. And we're going to be a county government. And this is going to change for you. So you may be, probably not some of these are going to apply to you, most of them. But if you're going to be a city or a county or police department, you're going to go under a city. If you're a sheriff's office, you're going to go under a county. So those are the options. You need to decide what kind of organization you are. Whether you're a county organization or you're a city organization. If you're a fire department, that's going to be city. So you would click no. If your organization is a state agency, which we are, so we'll click yes. If you're a private nonprofit, none of these are going to apply to the PSAPs. So you click no, because these are questions also for grants. So we're kind of weeding out some of them and using some of them. The fiscal year that you start each month. So is that July? Is that January? What kind of calendar year does your budget work off of? The FIPS number and the FEIN number don't apply to you unless you're also thinking, hey, I've never applied for a grant. Our PSAP isn't in there. We may want to apply for some grants that are coming up. You can add those if you would like. They don't pertain to the registration forms. But if you would like to add them because you're thinking of adding a grant and you're creating this new account, that is just fine. You will have to do some extra things because you're telling the admin here at EMGrants, hey, I'm thinking of doing a grant and I also want registration form access. So they're going to need a little bit more information from you. If that's something that you're not thinking you're ready for right now, you can leave those blank or put in a bunch of numbers. The red ones, you have to put in something. So you can just put in zeros for both the FEIN and the UEI. And then come back later and say, we're ready to apply for some grants and we need to give you some extra information. You're going to enter in your address. This is the PSAP address and the mailing address. And the reason you're requesting access is you're wanting access to the registration forms. So you can put in 911 registration forms, that's helpful, or you can put in registration forms. They just need something as a reason why you're requesting access. The program here, this deals with grants. So again, if you're giving extra information, then you'll want to decide what kind of grant you want. Ours, there's only one, the E911 grant. So if you're adding this information up here, the FEIN and the UEI, then you'll want to add this here, the E911 grant, and you can click on that. That's the only one that pertains to us. The position that you're going to be the PSAP contact. This just tells them that you are the person for the PSAP. You're the one requesting access. You're the one that they're going to put as the contact. You can put in here that you're putting the registration forms. This is not mandatory. So once you get all of this information in and you click register, it's going to take you to a new page that will say that you have to do an admin, a form that also approves them to give information and get information for grants. Unless you fill out that information for grants, you don't have to do that. You don't have to download it, you don't have to submit it, you don't have to do that. If again, you're still wanting to maybe put in all the information for grants, they need that information so that they can set up your account for payments and make sure that you are the person that has access and is privileged to have that information. So that is something you will have to do. If you are not a new user and you have a PSAP or agency or city, municipality, county listed, down here under create new applicant or applicant organization, you can simply click on that and it's going to pull up all that information already. So you're going to be an existing user. So you click that, this stays the same. You're still going to be representing the applicant organization. Going to click a pocket full of hope or whatever your agency is. If it's like Pawnee Fire, you're going to click the city of Pawnee. Sometimes they don't directly correspond to your PSAP, but if it's a city organization, it goes to the city. If it's a county, it goes to the county. If you have questions, you can call us. Like I said, all of that information that we just filled out, like the UEI and the FEIN, that's all taken away because that's already done. The only thing that you're going to tell the admins is that you are requesting access for the registration forms. And you can put in here registration forms. You can skip this because that's already been done. Most likely they have some kind of grant started already because you're an existing user and your PSAP was listed here. You're going to be the PSAP contact. And again, you're just going to click register. It's still going to take you to that page that says, you need to fill this out. We need this information. Please download this form and then send it in to us. However, that form most likely has already been done for the person that's applying for grants, so that you do not have to do that. So you fill in all of this information and you click that you have entered all of this, done all that, click register. And again, it's going to take you to this and say you have to complete the access request form. You do not have to do that unless you are a new user and you would like also, in addition to the registration form access, grant access in the future. You can skip that. I'm going to unmute everybody and see if we have any questions. Hold on one second. Okay. Do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, Stacy, this is Matt. Thank you for doing this. Just going that number we had put in at the regarding the grants on that other page there. If we already have one of those numbers, is it just the best practice to go ahead and put that information in if we've already applied for a grant, even if we're not anticipating applying for another one in the near future?
No, you do not have to put that in because it's already in the system, and those numbers correspond to the agency. So if there's already a grant in there, that number is already in there.
Okay,
So that you can totally skip over that. Good question.
thank you.
Any other questions before I move on?
Yes, Stacy. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm not real sure. I muted. We've got two computers going in the same room. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands there's two different methods. One if you haven't ever had access, and one if you have grant access. I think Stacy did a great job of covering that. Again, we're going to reiterate June 12th is the due date. The other thing I want to touch right now is that each PSAP is responsible for their own data and their own information. This is unlike in the past. Before, if you were a member of ACOG or SWOTA, ACOG or SWOTA heavily assisted you in that. And what I mean by that is either some of it you put in, some of it they put in, things like that. So you need to work with your contractors, and that's how we kind of on this process. That's how we kind of view ACOG and NCOG as a contractor that provides a service to you, and that's they're much more than a contractor, but that's how we have to view it for this particular situation. So you'll need to reach out to NCOG and ACOG, or ACOG reach out to you to tell you what those costs are related to their overall service they provide you. So again, ACOG doesn't need to register. SWOTA does not need to register. However, you need to. Obviously, we need help with this. So if you can help your local PSAPs register and you get that information to them, so then they can upload the information. The other thing is just, and we'll reiterate this multiple times. This is all based upon FY2021 information. So everything from this point forward is, as Stacy gets into the body of the questions and all of that, this is for last year's budget year. We're behind, so you're going to see it. Last year's ending in July or June 30th of 2021. And then here in a few months, you're going to see this budget year that we're going to be requesting. So we are behind, but I just want to touch base on those two. June 12th is the deadline, which is a Sunday, so end of the day on June 12th. And then each PSAP is responsible for their own. So, and I've got other things I need to add in, but we'll do that along the way. And I don't see any other, Stacey, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay.
Or there's no comments in the chat. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So moving on. I am going to be showing on the test site. So there's a couple things that may look a little different once you get into it, but the actions will be the same. So when you log in to your EMGrants, when you come here and you log in and you put your information in and you sign in, you will be taken to your home page, which will have your account up here. It will say the name of your agency up here, whatever that is. And you will have these various tabs on this side. Now, if you get in and somehow you click on something else and you think, oh gosh, how do I get back here? You can click on home, which is the house. This one is an inbox, and this will have your, if you have any notifications, any notes that we've provided to you, any feedback. If you wrote a note to us, and I'll explain where the notes are in just a minute, but if you've written any notes to us and we've replied, they will all be here. You can get to them here. And you'll have this little yellow ball with the number in it to show that you have notifications. You will also get an email from the system saying you have a note regarding this project. It'll say 911 registration forms, and then it'll have the note after it. and you can reply from that email, or you can click the link and go to your EMGrants and reply there. This one, if you decide, hey, I just want to go here, and you want to preset your memory, it'll say like, if you're on a page, you can say save to your menu, and it'll be up here. Accounts. When you log in, like I said, this is the test site, and I have a little more access than most people. So you're going to see just registration forms, and you're just going to see the account listing. That's all you'll have, because you may have grant access too, but because you're asking for this specific registration form, you're going to see registration forms and account listing. Up here on the finance, you won't have any of that because this doesn't have anything to do with grants. So you will just have accounts, the PIN, your inbox, and home. And then you'll have this little search magnifying glass. And then it'll say you're logged in, and your logout button is here, and the help is here. That's all you'll have. So when you get to your home and you've logged in, you'll have all this information. Most of it isn't pertinent to registration forms. The things that are, when under accounts, you'll have registration forms that'll tell you where the ones that you've saved, if you've saved them so far, they will be here. You can click on it and open it. This says funding sustainability because it's, like I said, the testing site. Under projects, if you have any projects that you've saved, they may be here, but again, this won't be here because this is the testing site. Under payments, you won't have any payments because registration forms don't have payments. You'll have contacts, the people that you have listed. If you should only have one, we've only allowed one person to log in for registration forms right now. That may change, but this year we've only had one person. So it should only be your name and that you've been given registration form access, your phone number, title, and email. The notes will hold all the notes that you've sent to us, all the ones we've sent to you. They will all be listed here by date. You can go back and retrieve them, look at them. They will save here. Documents is where your budget will be once you upload it. It will just have one because you're only uploading one. And the history will show who logged in, if it was modified, created, if they added a note, the date and the time. So you can see who's logged in, when the last time you logged in, and so forth. So you can see when you submitted it, everything will be there. So to start the registration forms, but maybe I should stop and ask questions. Does anybody have any questions? That's a lot of information. Excuse me.
So the question is, the June 12th is the deadline, question mark.
Yes.
Yes, June 12th is the deadline.
Okay. Go ahead, Danny.
Okay. So what you're talking about over here on the registration form, if I'm looking at mine right now, that should not be visible yet, correct?
Have you requested access?
No, ma'am. That's
Maybe
where I was confused on how to request access, and
are you saying you're looking at my screen and seeing it, or your screen?
I'm looking at my screen.
He has logged in for grants. He's applied for a grant.
You have a login because of grants.
Correct.
And it may be that the registration forms are there because you were used for the testing site,
Sure.
but they're not really there.
Okay.
So you'll still have to request access for them.
Okay. Have we got to that part yet?
Yes.
Yes, we have. You have to go and register and request access for, that's the first part that we just did.
Okay. And I was trying to track on that and I got lost. So how do I request that access? Or if I need to just watch the video again so you can move on, I understand that. I apologize.
It sounds to me, Danny, you need to be fired. That's just my opinion. But
you know what? There are like PSAT managers all around the country just lining up to take jobs like mine. That's probably a great idea.
Go back over to the main page and just say, go click here, click register, and then.
You just go over here. This is the home page.
Yes.
You click register.
So not sign in. That's where I messed up, was whenever I click sign in then.
Yeah, no, you're going to register first.
Aha.
And then you're going to click as a existing user because you already have
Okay.
grants access. And then you're going to click on your organization. You're going to do Pontotoc County, City of Ada.
And then below that, request registration.
And then below here, you're going to request the E911 PSAP contacts here,
Okay.
and everything else should be the same.
That's where I went awry.
Yep, and then you don't have to do the authorization form after you click register. You've already done it.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's where I messed up. I signed in instead of registering on that initial thing there. So
Yep.
anyway, I apologize, and
That's okay.
and I second Matt Stillwell's motion to fire me, and I appoint him as the head of the committee to replace me.
No, you're fine. We all have questions. It's a new process. So I'm going to mute everyone again. If you have questions, use the chat. But then I'll break in a few minutes and we'll go back to questions. Okay, so once you get here and you're ready to start the forms, you've requested access, you've been approved for access, you've gotten that email that says your request was approved. You'll come in here, you'll log in. The home page, again, will bring you to your account. And you'll click this button here, create new request. You can't create a new registration form. You can't start it. You have to click this, create new request. Once you do that, this box will pop up and you'll click new registration form. Now you can do this, and if something happens, like you get busy or you have to go to a meeting and you didn't think it was going to be that long and you've started, you can save. But again, to start the registration form process, you go into your account, click create new request, and then new 911 registration form. Not everyone will have this. If you don't have any grant access, the only thing you're going to see is this. So you click this, and it brings you to the registration forms only. So all you're going to see is the registration forms. All of this on the side goes away. Not because it's gone, just because you're in the registration form portal, so to speak. So you've got the registration forms, and usually they're broken down into 3. However, this year they're broken down into these 5. So all the registration form information is the same. The same information that we sent out in the PDF is all the same here. It's just broken out differently. And then you have your documentation, which is where you upload your budget. So these are forms you fill in, answer questions, provide information. This is where you upload a budget. That's all this is. So the first step is when you get to the introduction. Now this one is pretty simple. It's just going to be your contacts. It's going to be the same as Form 1. So you're going to select the fiscal year. Now this is important because it changes all the dates throughout the rest of the forms. So your dates for finances, your dates for call information. This year is 2021. And then you have to save it. So it changes all the dates in the forms. And I know it says create, but this is save. So you click here. Hopefully it'll not take too long. And then it tells you that it's been saved. And this changes to save. I'm not sure why it does that. It's just how it works. So you save that. Now, if you get busy or you have to come back, this is where you can save and come back. You can click save, and it will keep this place you're at, and you can come back to it, which I'll save when we get a little further in. But so you've saved it till this point. This is the same question we've asked before. You know, we're telling you how important this is. This is information that could be public one day. It's not now, but it could be. This is information that's going to go towards legislation and getting funding. This is information that's going to go to the FCC. This information needs to be accurate. And you're going to click this.
Stacy, go ahead, something.
Mhm.
So we put these warnings in there for several reasons. And Stacy covered on that, right? With the FCC, it's all of that. Historically, we have not published this information because it's crap. A lot. I shouldn't say it that way. We struggle with real numbers. And so the challenge I have for you moving forward is understand the cost of doing business. If you're a leader within your organization and you run a 911 center or you're a 911 coordinator, you need to understand the cost of doing business, period. And there's multiple reasons behind that, not just because, well, it's a great idea to have it locally, but we need to have the good information coming in so we can get more money for you in the future. That's the first thing. But also, as you argue and you debate new positions or equitable items within your 911 center between police, fire, and EMS, you need to understand what it costs. It's very frustrating on our side to see that nobody knows or very few people know what the real cost is on what it costs to run a 911 center. So that's my challenge to you, is to make sure we do that. The other thing is we have the 911 Management Authority has approved $100,000 this year for auditing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to audit the PSAPs or randomly audit the PSAPs. We may first audit the carriers and make sure they're paying in the proper amount of money that they're bringing in. However, it is of interest to audit the PSAPs on the information you're providing on this PSAP information. So fair warning, please understand your budget, understand the cost of doing business, and let's fill this thing out accurately. The last thing is we will start reporting this to the governor. As we start making this information public, you will get questions at the local level. So, and I'm trying to scare you, but we need to make sure we're singing in harmony as it relates to this information. So we have not done this in the past, but we will be making this information public through a report to the governor's office and to the legislature. So if it goes to the legislature, so your local legislature is going to see this. And obviously, if it filters back down to your city, county, municipality, and they look at that going, whoa, wait a second. You need to make sure that this is accurate. So FCC looking at it, 911.gov, which is the federal office for 911, is looking at your information. The governor's going to be looking at it, the legislature is going to be looking at it, and we have auditing budgeted this year to audit. So fair warning, please be as accurate as you can, ask as many questions as you can, and we're here to help. Thanks, Stacy.
Do we have any questions on that at the moment before I move on? Okay. So once you have clicked that you agree to that and you've changed the fiscal year, it's going to tell us and you who clicked that by who is logged in and creating and providing the information on the forms. So we have that certification from you this year that says, yes, you read this and you understand this. That's important for, 6 months down the road when you may have questions from outside of our agency and you say, well, I didn't know that was coming. Well, hopefully you did know that was coming. So if you have questions on that, you can definitely reach out to us individually. If you don't want to talk about it on here, you can definitely call us and we'll be happy to run through that with you. The next information is PSAP information. So I'm going to enter in information that is not good information just because I'm going to get through this. But these are the same questions that we've had in the forms for a while. So these shouldn't be difficult or a surprise, but if you have questions, we will definitely answer them. there's a couple of different ways that they are asked this time just to get the questions into EMGrants, but they are basically the same question. If you don't have a website, if your PSAP doesn't have a website, that's okay. Just put NA. Some don't, some do, that's fine. We're not asking you to create one. The physical address. We're going to ask this a couple times. If you know, some people in the past have skipped over this. They've put in the wrong information, but this is something we actually use, especially when we're mailing out the population model, because we do mail out those as physical letters. If we have to mail out anything else, we use that address, and the mailing address, the physical address for mapping and things like that. So that's important too.
We also use it for the tracking or for EMG deployment. So
yes, if you didn't hear Lance, he said we also use it for NG911 deployment. So if you have questions on that, and you know, when we did a map recently, there was the mailing address that we had was incorrect. So, you know, if you have questions, we're here to answer those. Like I said, not much has changed in these. The address and contact for citizens. This is a little bit of a new question. It's not an entirely new question. We've asked this before, but we're trying to get the most accurate information because we get calls, because we at one time did have everybody's contact information on the website that they could just look up and call you themselves. However, contacts change really quickly. Somebody leaves, somebody new gets a position, somebody doesn't know anything about addressing, so it's a totally different person. So we took that off, and we have been giving that out to citizens who call and say, I need a 911 address. So we need the most accurate information so that we could say, this is the person you talk to, and they can say that with confidence and say, okay, I'll call them. There are a couple instances when that, you know, they've called and they don't get the right people, and we don't want to do that. We want to get them to the right person so that they can get that done. And, you know, whatever process you have, if they call you and you say, oh, you have to go to this website, that's fine. We just want to have the most accurate information possible. If you have questions on that, like I say, please give us a call. We will be happy to go over that with you or create a plan with you, whatever we need to do so that we can provide the best information. If you have a website, we'd love to use that. We'd love to say, hey, you can just go to this website and their process is on there. And, you know, if you have questions, you can call us or call them. But we're not telling you have to have a website. That's not what we're saying. We're just trying to give them the best information. So this is the end of the introduction. At this point, you don't have to necessarily save it to move on. You can just move on. If you get to the end of this and you're like, you know what, I'm going to need some more information, you can save it and come back to it. It will be in your account here. It'll say what number it is, and you can come back to it. You can also keep going without saving it. So I'm going to unmute now. Does anybody have any questions before we go on?
The big key to this is after you put the year in, make sure it hits save. Put the year in at the very top, hit save, because if you don't, it won't change all the dates throughout the program. So just want to reiterate that again. So the question online is, are the physical address published as we would consider that a security risk potential? No, they're not published. That information is not put out. It is we use it for our internal mailing, like Stacy said, but also we use it for NG911 planning. And so so you know, we need to know where your PSAP's located at, so we can plan out an SDNet or a network in order to connect everything together. So
Okay, moving on to PSAP contact information, which is kind of an anomaly because it's contact information, just like the first page. However, it does go into those kind of specific contacts that we had on Form 1, but it's basically the same questions. The PSAP coordinator. This is going to be the person that acts as the coordinator, whether they have that title or not. So if you're a lead dispatcher or your head dispatcher does that, that's the person we're looking for. We want to know who is that acting person. And we've kind of put some helpers in here. You know, if you say, well, I mean, the 911 coordinator does all these things. Okay, well, do they kind of do these things too? Because that's what we're looking for. This is going to be the person that we pretty much reach out to, and we kind of know who to reach out to on most PSAPs. You know, the ones we talk to a lot or the ones we work with a lot, we know. But there are some that we don't talk to unless there's a problem. And we call and, you know, we say, oh, can I talk to so-and-so? And they're like, oh, they left 6 months ago. So this is going to be our main contact, the person I reach out to the most, the person we kind of email most things to, you know, the meeting agendas, the packets, what's going on, hey, this is coming up, that sort of thing. So that's going to be this contact. So if they have a title other than coordinator, are they, you know, the person that comes in on Saturday? And that's how you work that out. That's what we were trying to find out. Do they have an office number? Is it the same as their mobile number? Because that happens. That's okay. We just want to know what they are. So if they're the same as that, okay, just put that in there. That's what we want to know. We want definitely their email. And if this changes, because people sometimes change, like they decide, well, we're not going to go with Gmail anymore because whatever, we're going to go with, they finally got us agency emails. So, you know, we want to know that. We want to know the mailing address. We want to know that sort of thing. So we can put that in there and say, hey, if we need to get a hold of you by this means, this is what we want to know so we can do that effectively. Because it's come down to the point before where I'm like, well, this one was yesterday and this one was this one today. And it makes us getting you that information a little difficult. The dispatch operations. So this is important. And this is kind of a little different than we've asked it before. We asked this last year, but I don't know if, you know, it's helpful for me because me not having worked in a PSAP before, it's helpful to differentiate the roles a little bit, but this also helps us in contacting as well. So who's in the role of the manager? Who's the one that handles these kind of duties, handles operations and standards and policies and staffing? Is that a person that is technically the coordinator? Is that a person that is actually the manager? That's important for us to know. Definitely want to know the office phone number. If they have a cell phone, yes. If they don't have a cell phone, okay, that happens. We get that. But we would like to know that. That's important as well. What their email is, definitely, and the mailing address for the office, because sometimes it's different, definitely, than the physical address. We've had that before. So we can get information to you the best way, and also for mapping purposes. The financial contact. This is a big one. Sometimes the financial person isn't in the PSAP. Sometimes it's the treasurer or the clerk or the county commissioner. Who is the governing body that does that? If you're a trust, is it the chairman? Do you have a secretary that does that for the trust? Who is that person? This is important because obviously we want to work with the tax commission on your 911 fees. We also want to be able to say, you know, we want to get the most obviously financial information possible, and they will probably, if you have that person, be able to provide that for us. Who's the person that gets the fees? This may not be the person who does the finances. Is this the chief who is the one that gets that check or that deposit from the tax commission and handles those wireless fees, puts them in the right account, puts them in accounts to be paid for things to be paid? Who is that person that does that? Even if it's different than the governing body. That's a big one. Do you want to go over that? So once all that information is in there, you can, it's the same. We're going to ask always their title, office, that sort of thing. Put this in there so we go a little faster. Oops. Why that's not working. Oh, some of these you'll notice that you can only put in numbers. If it keeps doing that, it's because you have to put in numbers. It's a numeral entry form. It's not going to take words. Technology contact. So the person or agency who you rely on for support, if that's within the city, the county, who do you call for IT support? If something is network related, who do you call? Do you call your vendor? Do you call someone in the city? Who do you call for that? What their title is, what their contact is, that sort of thing. Again, these are going to be phone numbers or numerals that you have to put in there. It's not going to let you put in something different. Like you can't put in NA or anything like that because it's asking for a number. This is a new question. How do you initiate a ticket request for support? Whether do you send an email to somebody? Do you send an email and they create a ticket that you can track? How is that done? If you don't have a tracking system, is it just, well, they came down and did the work and it's done? Let us know how that works. GIS and addressing. The MSAG is a question we haven't really asked about, and we need to know these questions. And if you don't know how to get the answers, give us a call. We can help you. Do you have a mapping vendor? So is this like, do you have SAM or RNS Digital or any kind of those that handle your mapping? If you do, it's going to drop down another box where you can select them. If you don't, it's not going to give you that option. Who does the mapping for the PSAP? We'll want to know that. If it's the city, IT, whatever. And the person that does the MSAG is, does someone in your PSAP, a dispatcher, or someone in your agency handle the MSAG, have a login, update the information within the MSAG when there's changes? So we get to the end of this, and again, it's going to ask you to confirm that this information is correct because it's important. So again, once you click that, it's going to say that you certified that and the date and the time. It's going to save that so you can go on to the next, which is the equipment. I'm going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions. Do you have anything?
Yeah, we have one question in chat from Shelley Dragon at Carter County, and she said, so in my case, this would be the county treasurer. So, yes, it probably is the county treasurer if they're the ones that are receiving in the Oklahoma Tax Commission checks. That's kind of is what we look at is who's receiving Oklahoma County Tax Commission checks. Some locations have a trust, and that trust actually receipts it into their own bank accounts and have their own accounting systems. If that's the case, then it could either be the 911 coordinator that's duplicated above. If you're the one that does the budget and does the numbers and all of that. So I believe, Shelley, you're right. It would be the county treasurer for you because they're the ones who receive that in, but that may not necessarily be the case for everyone. That's all the thing that was in the chat.
Okay, so moving on to PSAP equipment. Again, let me just preface by saying if you have questions or you're not sure where to get this information, please call us. We're happy to help you weed through the people to go through to get this. And we need this to be accurate so we can make plans and do financial planning and things like that for the state. The server question, same as last year. What kind of server are you operating? If it's on-site, if it's off-site, if it's hosted, how are you doing that? If it's hosted, it's off-site, it's going to ask you how you're getting that in, and you can choose one of these. This is just one answer. If you say that it's on-site, it's not going to give you that question, but it is going to ask you who's the redundant connection, or if you have a redundant connection. So if you say yes, it's going to ask you to fill in that blank. So you can put in your vendor there. As far as the maturity of your PSAP's progress toward NG911 or I3 compliance, this gives you a little definition of what each of these are, and you just need to choose where your PSAP is.
That's specific to the 911.gov reporting that we have to do.
Yes, specific to the 911.gov reporting, if you didn't hear Lance. If you have questions on that, please give us a call. Operations, what kind of calls does the PSAP answer? This is always on there. You just have to choose which one is yours. Do you operate 24 hours a day? If you say no, it's going to ask who you transfer to. If you say yes, it's not going to give you that option. If you have an interlocal agreement with someone, if you say no, it's not going to pop anything up. If you say yes, it's going to ask what agencies you have that ILA with. Staffing numbers. This one sometimes trips people up. Do you have anything you want to say about this one?
So there's what we're trying to track here is we're trying to track turnover
throughout the year to year, and showing progression of how where we are with our industry. And
there we go. So the first thing that's always confusing to everyone is how many full-time call takers and dispatcher positions were approved for the PSAP budget in the most recent budget. This budget is the one that we're actually looking for the number for the beginning of 2021, which is actually 2020, July 1st of 2020. How many dispatchers were you allotted in the budget? That's what we're looking for. So, and then the other one is, as of today's date, which today's date's fine. I know we're several months behind, but as of today's date, how many full-time dispatchers do you have fully trained, seated, working on their own? We tell this to our legislators at the federal level, so we take and do these statistics, and we run these statistics to show that we've got a high turnover rate, and because we do, just how it is. And the next is part-time call takers. So if you have budgeted part-time call takers, how many do you have in budget? All right. Again, next thing is, how many do you have that were on staff at the time? They were fully trained and released working on their own. So the next question gets a little tricky. How many hourly supervisors positions do you have? So if you're a working supervisor that works day shift, and you're the lead dispatcher, and you are designated the supervisor, the one that handles the scheduling, handles the needs and wants and all that of the dispatch center, then we want you to put that here and not up in the dispatch center number. So if you're a dispatch center of 5 people and you are the supervisor, that means you have 4 people as dispatchers and 1 supervisor at the bottom, which would be you. Okay. So don't duplicate that supervisor position in both places. You put it in one or the other, but we certainly want to account for civilian supervisors that are running our PSAPs. So that's another question. If your supervisor that does all of the oversight and budget and supervision is a commissioned officer, then you put 0 here. 5 dispatchers, 0 down here. Okay.
And you'll notice on this one, it's saying the last 2 years. It's showing you the information from there. This is something that we're working on. It's not necessarily on the live site, but this should be on this fall's request. It will show you the previous year's numbers to kind of help guide you to say, hey, you're saying that your staff has constantly gone down, just so you have that visual representation of what's been going on. This will not most likely be in the live site when you're entering your information this year. The telecommunicators that are paid with 911 funds. I'm going to let you talk about that.
What's up?
The 911 funds, paid with 911 funds.
Yeah, I can touch it.
That's real quick.
So
we're going to be asking this question. Did you use 911 funds to pay for any of this? This is an FCC reporting. Was staff in Oklahoma funded by the 911 fee, and if operational staff was funded by the 911 fee, how many positions were funded by the 911 fee? And we're not asking you to go in and say, well, it's 2 positions out of 5 and all that. We just simply need to know, did $5 out of a $1 million budget, did you use $5 of fee money in order to pay for those? And the answer would be yes or no. So if you're dumping all of your money all your 911 fee money into your budget every year and zeroing that out, then your technology is only costing 40% of that 911 fee revenue, then the other 60% has got to be going somewhere. So most likely it's going towards operations or going towards dispatcher salaries or something like that. So again, if you used it for that, then put yes or no. It's total number again.
Yeah.
Okay. So I take that back. Yeah, this is, and so we do need to know the total number that were paid for by the 911 fee, and that is a new question for the FCC report. So I apologize for that. So if you pay for 2 positions, if the 911 fee has pays for 40% of your staffing, then 40% of your staffing needs to be accounted for within this position in this place. If you don't pay for any dispatcher salaries, then put 0. So sorry about the confusion.
And I think there's 2 chat questions. One from Alicia Hammond asking if and then one from Debbie Wagner.
Yeah. So there's one chat question that says, so if a dispatch supervisor is a reserve, they should not be included. I'm assuming that's a reserve police officer, so no, they will not be included because that's outside of the dispatch center. And then the next question is, what if the dispatch supervisor is basically dispatching full-time due to lack of staffing? You would account for those 2 supervisors in the supervisor position or the supervisor question here, and then the rest would be dispatchers. So they do, if they play a supervisor role in the dispatch center, that's what we're trying to account for in that blank. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. You'll notice on this one, also, this is a numeral answer only. You can't put in NA. You can't put in I don't know. One year we had in Oklahoma, so you can't put in that. You can only put in numbers. That's the only thing it will allow you to put in. You can put in 0 because that's obviously possible, but you can only put in 0 or numerals into these questions. Type of calls you can receive. If you only have basic, you should pretty much only be Cimarron County. If you only have enhanced, that's 1. If you do enhanced and all of them, all you have to do is do control click or command click on a Mac, and that will get you multiple answers. Same as the texting. If you don't do text at all, then okay. Some of these are kind of hard to see. They're supposed to, when you hover over them, they're supposed to elongate, but this was something that was supposed to be fixed into the live site, so it'll show you the whole answer that you have to choose from. But if you have just 1, that's fine. If you have 2, again, control click or command click, and you can choose multiple options. If you're using a third-party software, please just enter what that software is. This is going down to your equipment, enter your vendor. These are just pretty basic have been on all the forms previously. What brand is it? What version is it? And on version, if you don't know how to get or find the version, please call us so we can help you with that, because we do need to know what version you're running. So hopefully it can provide us more information and get a better picture when we provide this to legislation. If you don't have the equipment, if you're not running, one of these, then you can put NA here. It will let you do that. But if you just don't know and you're not sure how to find out, give us a call before you just don't answer the question. So you put in those, that's pretty basic. Is your recorder NG or I3 compliant? Yes or no? And if you're using protocols, again, if you have to click on more than one, it's just control click or command and click. Call taking positions, full positions like above. These are important as well. You can only enter numerals in these as well. You can't do NA, but you can do 0 if that is how many limited positions you have. And how many trunk lines. This, again, was asked last year. Just the number of trunk lines that you have connected. If you have a COOP plan and you click no, it's not going to allow you any other questions. If you click yes, or sorry, that's not the right one, if it's the MOU. If you have a MOU, obviously yes or no. We've asked this before. Does your MOU include how to take back and calls, excuse me, delivered out back to responders in your jurisdiction? Yes or no? And again, we're asking you to certify the information that you provided us on this information as well. So you'll click and it'll give the name, date, and time before you move on. Do you want to say something? Okay.
On the MOU, we do have one MOU that I know of in the States between Beaver County and Texas County that they've developed there. But this is pretty important. We just had a recent tornado that hit a 911 center, and 911 calls we're not going through. A lot of it is because of technical issues with the telephone companies, cell phone companies, and all of that. We can't fix that. But certainly, we need to have plans on who's going to back you up, and then how are you going to get those calls back to the originating PSAP. So be forward thinking and be thinking about how that works and how you can work with your neighboring PSAP to make that happen. If you have questions, let us know. Thank you.
Okay. You'll notice that I didn't put something in one of these and it remained red, and I could still go on to call data, but this remains red. So if you don't answer a question, it's going to let you move on. It's not going to tell you, oh, you didn't answer something, but it will remain red. So that's kind of a cue to go back and put information in. And then when you go to the next, it will change to black to let you know that all the questions have been answered. I'm going to take a break and see if anybody has questions before moving on.
Okay, so we had a good question in the chat, and this comes up every year. And the question is, so do I only list the 4 part-time dispatchers employed within 911 for Cherokee County since all of the dispatchers are paid through their agency? No. We need to account for all the staff that in the 911 center that and the cost for those dispatchers too, and to be able to process the 911 call and get it back out to the field to the proper responder. That's the definition within statute, and so we need to account for that answering the 911 call and delivering it to the proper agency. And I know it gets very confusing and it's very difficult to be able to get those numbers, but and I'll go ahead and cover it now. But one of the things I have listed down here is future legislation. In order for us to
look
at future legislation as it results to funding.
We
We have got to know how much it costs to deliver 911 service in the state of Oklahoma. Now, for Cherokee County, you don't list out Tahlequah Police Department as a standalone dispatch center. We're not looking for the standalone dispatch center costs. We're looking for the 911 center and what it is within that 911 center in order to function. So for you include the sheriff's office within your building, within your structure. You would include those. A lot of people get confused by that. They're like, "Well, I'm a 911 coordinator, and I keep all the money. It's my accounts, it's my money. I only pay for technology. I save the rest of it." That's all well and good, but in order for us to compare apples to apples, we need to know how much that 911 dispatch center is costing for operations also. And we cover this every year, and every year we have the same questions, or we get the same results back we have 13 dispatchers, one supervisor, for a total of 14, but yet our overall cost that she's about to go through for salaries and benefits is only $72,000. It's like, what are you guys paying them $2 an hour? I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense. So we're accounting for that entire operation within that 911 dispatch center, so we can report it out to the legislature on what it really costs to do business. Because if we just do 911 call takers, okay, that's this cost. But we have to deliver that to the field, so we're looking for everything. I'll quit killing that horse. So go ahead, Stacey.
Okay, call data. I'm hoping this year will be a little easier on everyone. In the past, we have requested the call data and then a total at the end of the most important call data, which is all the 911 calls, landline, wireless, other, telematics, and hangups, and then requested that you total that for us so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on. However, this year, we're not asking you to total it. So we're just asking for all of your call numbers just the same, total 911 calls, total landline calls, total wireless calls, total other calls, telematics calls, and all of the hangups. And then the system will total it for you. Yay. I mean, yay. So you don't have to do that. Total awesome added bonus. However,
number at the top needs to match number at the bottom.
Yes.
We are asking for the total number, right?
Yes. The numbers still need to match, which in the past has been a challenge. So this number is obviously not going to match this number because I just entered random numbers. But this number here, the total of all the calls received, needs to match all the 911 calls received total. So if those two aren't matching, call us. We can help you get a call report or contact your vendor or whatever is needed, because that is important. And also, just for your own information, I'll go through and determine if your hangups are over 12% of all of your calls, your total calls, which if they are, it might be an indication of something going on, and you may need to talk to your vendor because they should not be over that 12%.
Yeah, to that. So, why is the abandon rate so important? Staffing. I mean, if your abandon rate is in the 18 to 20% range because you can't get to the phones fast enough, that's very important to administration. You need to understand what your abandon rate is. If your abandon rate is high, but you're like, we don't get that many 911 calls, well, you may have a trunking issue. So there may be issues technically that you need to look into. So we try everything we can do on our side to say, hey, you're above average. Why is it 12%? Because historically, in the last 2 years, 12% has been our average across the state. There was an email chain with other states, and they're seeing a 7% average of abandon rate. Why is that?
Why
Why
are
are
other
other
states,
states, so much lower than we are in our abandon rates?
now, of course, we can
Now,
say,
of course, we could say, well, they're union states and they're this and that, and they care about their dispatchers.
okay.
Okay.
However,
However, this is a local thing that you need to identify and understand for technology, to make sure your technology is working, make sure your dispatchers are working properly, and also be able to support additional staff. As every abandonment rate means that somebody didn't get service. Now, most of the time, granted, it could be pocket miles and all that, right? But it's a telltale sign of efficiency within your dispatch operation. So please pay attention to that. That's why we flag it. That's why we send it back to you if you're over 12%.
Okay. And like I said, if you run those numbers and you have questions, call us. We can help you work through it. Text. If you have text, great. Put those numbers in. If you're not running text, you can put 0. Transferred calls, same as every year. Incoming and outgoing calls, those aren't going to be total because we're not looking necessarily directly and closely at those numbers, but they are just as important. Again, going to ask that you certify this information, and it will tell us again date and time who's certified. And if you missed one, it'll be red, but we got all, so we get to move on to finance. And finance is a big one.
Sorry, one more thing on the 7-digit calls that she asked about, or the 10-digit calls that we've asked about here. If you don't have a call accounting system, then you don't have to put anything there. Just put 0. Don't make it up. Don't just assume things like that, because that'll just be a reflection back on you, and you'll have to justify that decision. So it's okay to put 0 in those bottom numbers. But then again, going back to workload and expectations, this is a lesson to be learned. You need the call accounting system if all possible. You need to do the research on that, and you need to try to determine what is my workload of my dispatch center. People are constantly asking, well, I need 2 dispatchers on duty. I need this, I need that. But there's no statistics to back that up. So it goes back in your strategic planning and being able to justify these positions based upon workload. So just, again, lesson learned, things that you need to be looking at as an administrator or a supervisor. That's it, Stacey. Thanks.
And you'll notice up here, so on the finance and the call data especially, it'll say that these numbers are for the fiscal year of 2021. This is why it's so important on that introduction page that you click the right fiscal year. Because this is, like I said, is going to change all the dates for all the forms. And if you have them wrong, you're going to have to redo it. So, like I said, it will change all the dates for you. You just have to click the right fiscal year and then save. Moving on to finance. This is a big one. Everybody knows this is a big one. It's challenging, it's frustrating, and we want to make sure that we can help you get through some of those frustrations and get the right numbers, not only for us, but for you. So it's going to ask you to confirm first that this information that you're providing in the revenue, the expenses, and the budget is correct. Now, this year we did expenses first, and the reason for that is so that you can put in the expenses and then your revenue, and at the bottom where it totals the expenses and revenue and shows you the difference between those two, it will hopefully give a better picture of why we're asking the questions we're asking and why we need the information we need. So the questions are the same. We have removed the office supply question and the building question. I know your hearts are full of joy right now, and put it down at the bottom and make it an optional question if you have those costs, not a mandatory question, so you have to find those costs. So again, putting in numbers for costs, you'll put it just in the numbers. These do not allow anything other than numerals for the rest of the questions. You will have to select whether these are used, 911 fees are used for these costs. And like I said, they're the same questions as before, minus a few. And hopefully this is easier than it has previously. So on the telecom equipment and the call taking equipment, do you want to touch on this since these are ACOG questions?
So this goes back to NCOG and well, there's several of them that NCOG and that ACOG and SWOTA provide the local entities. And it gets confusing sometimes. So we put more instructions here. So please, look at the instructions. Please report costs for admin phone systems, MSAG, phase 2, data circuits, all of that type of stuff in this one. The next thing at the bottom is only include call taking equipment and not the cost of connectivity. So we are looking for the top line there is the cost of the connectivity. The bottom line is the cost of the 911 equipment
Per PSAP.
per PSAP. And so ACOG and SWOTA both have different models on how they build that back out, and it could be part of the MOU you have with ACOG or SWOTA or whatever it may be. They may average those costs, but you need to get these two costs specifically from those two. The other thing that I would ask you to have a discussion with, specifically with ACOG, is the training and administrative costs, and where can we put those costs in? Because they provide a valuable service to the state of Oklahoma with their training programs they have at ACOG. So we want to make sure to account for that, because if we don't account for that and it's now with fee revenue coming in, they're paying for this training for you guys. It sure would be nice to track that in the training section to show, we are providing training in the state of Oklahoma, and ACOG's one of the big leaders in that. So again, we want to make sure we account for all the funding, and historically this has been a little different, the way that they've done that. But we need to get those costs from your contractor, quote unquote, which is ACOG and SWOTA. I'm sorry, ACOG and SWOTA, and put those costs in per PSAP. So each PSAP will account for their piece of that cost.
Can you talk about the GIS, CAD, and radio costs? Because those seem to be an issue.
Which one?
GIS, CAD, and radio costs.
Okay. So Stacy wants me to cover the next few. So the next one is, what was the total cost for GIS services? GIS services. This is a contractor. This is if you're contracting with, SAM or SDR or Geocom or something like that. So this is a service contract that you would have with them. If you have your own internal GIS people, we need to account for that above in the technical positions cost. So operation cost, technical position cost. So if you have internal GIS folks, account for that within this technical position, okay? But the bottom one for GIS services is the contract for GIS services. Here's another example. I know ACOG has a contract with Geocom. ACOG, we need to figure out what that cost is per PSAP with Geocom contract and get that plugged in for the GIS cost. It's extremely important for us to track these things because it's going to affect the future legislation that's going to support NG 911. We need to know what those GIS costs are. The next one is CAD, computer aided dispatch, maintenance, and support. So if you have a computer aided dispatch system and a CAD system, we need to account for that maintenance and support cost for CAD. So whatever that maintenance support cost is. Now, some places just say, I don't know, it costs me $25,000 a year. All right, well, what is that? Well, that $25,000 a year is for police records, fire records, jail management, CAD, mobile clients, all that stuff. Whoa, time out. There needs to be a way to break that $25,000 out and figure out what it costs you. What's it cost you? What is your skin in the game for that contract as the 911 dispatch center? So you can only pay for that CAD system or the 911 system or whatever it is that's directly in the 911 dispatch center. So you can't pay for that overall contract for all software solutions out of 911 fee revenue. So we need to figure out what those costs are directly for the CAD product. in that section. Let's see.
Radio
Radio
console
console maintenance, again,
it's
not the cost of your radio system. It's not. I've got a radio system that's like Norman, for instance, that's 6 towers, and that radio maintenance costs $500,000 a year. I get all that, but what's the radio dispatch, the dispatch consoles cost in the dispatch center? Is that $200,000 a year, whatever it is? But only what's in those walls of the dispatch center is what we're concerned about. Not the repeater, not any of that. Okay. What else do we got?
On accounting, don't the trust shouldn't have accounting costs?
So the next question is, what was the total cost for PSAP accounting and auditing for legal legal experts? Some cities actually have billing mechanisms to bill back out for internal services for some of these components. So you may be able to quickly get to that if you're a municipality. However, if you're not, then don't worry about it. It's okay. They just provide that, and you can't break it out. That's okay for this piece of it. However, if you're a trust, specifically a trust, then you will have auditing, legal costs, and accounting costs as part of that trust, because that's the duties of a trust within the state of Oklahoma, is you have to provide those on your own. So you need to know what those costs are. They may be a contract with the county clerk, and the county clerk provides that, but the trust contracts to the county clerk. So what does that cost?
Budgetary costs reported.
What's that?
Budgetary costs reported. No budgetary costs.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that is we don't want budgetary costs. We want actual costs. We want to make sure that whatever was actually spent out of your accounts is what you're accounting for in all of these. Not this is what your budget was. And a good example of that is I was budgeted $1.5 million a year for 19 dispatchers. However, I only spent with overtime and everything 1.7 or 1.2 million, because we were short staffed all year. Well, the 1.2 million is what we need to account for, not the 1.5 million. We need the actual costs, not budgetary costs. So the next section here is what's the cost of dues and subscriptions? And we have a list of their APCO, NETA, OLETs, 911 periodicals, things like that. So you can do this, and on Stacy's screen, yeah, you can still see it. So if you close chat, if you have chat open, you won't see the right side of her screen. But if you open everything up, you'll see a little plus and minus to delete. But you can just add additional items in and add those costs in individually, or you can delete those out. So there's an add button at the bottom, and there's a delete button to the side. So you will just continue to add additional subscriptions or what it costs for those, and you'll add those, and then it'll total there at the bottom.
And it'll total at the grand total at the bottom.
Yeah, and then that will total back up to the grand total at the bottom. So again, we're asking were no one's fees paid for, did they were used to pay any portion of this? Yes or no? Total cost for travel and meetings. Did you have travel costs to go to meetings? Did you, I have a tremendous amount of travel costs for my office, for me specifically, because I travel around and I go to meetings, and there's a heavy cost for that. So do you have costs for that or not? The next one is absolutely shocking. And it paints a clear picture of where we're at with the state of Oklahoma as it relates back to the 911 dispatchers and where they're at within the profession in Oklahoma. We see zeros across the board with training as it relates to PSAP. So we're looking for what's the total cost of training related to the PSAP. Now, if you're a recipient every year, we'll see that you have 5 dispatchers, and then you put down a budgetary amount of $25,000 for training for those 5 dispatchers because you work under a police department. That's not true. We need to know what the actual cost is that you paid out for training related to the PSAP. So if you didn't go to any classes and none of your people went to any classes, it's zero. All right, outside of internal training. Okay, so
We're gonna ask.
we need to make sure to account for the actual cost of the dispatch center.
And this is
another one of those that ACOG. This is where ACOG would put in the cost of your the training program that they have there broken out by PSAP. However you guys want to figure that out, that's between you and the contractor. So.
And we're gonna ask why you didn't do any training.
Yeah, and that's another thing we do send back. So we do send back a note and said, and we keep it pretty soft, and it's mainly for administrators. But you put down zero that you didn't do any training for the dispatch centers last year. Just want to confirm that's accurate. So you didn't do any training last year. And I know a lot of people can't do it. A lot of you are short staffed and all that. But we're trying to push the profession to a new level. The only way we can do that is to try to start convincing administrators and staff and legislators that this is important and this is where we're at today. So vehicle expenses. So if you have a vehicle that's assigned to the 911 dispatch center, then you would account for that there. And then the next section is other expenses. So used to we had asked for the building costs. That was very difficult for a lot of people to figure out. And so we don't ask for that. However, we would love to account for your building space and your cost per square foot in this overall cost. It costs the state of Oklahoma pays $9 per square foot for our office space back to OMBS. So it's an internal cost. So for every square foot of office space that the 911 Management Authority takes up, it's $9 per square foot per month. A lot of money. Okay, but we're trying to account for that. So again, what does it cost to do business? What's it cost for you to do business within your PSAP organization? Office supplies, cell phone administration. You can build this thing up with these additional costs that were paid out for your 911 dispatch center. So the next section, a quick question from Danny is vehicle allowance for the manager the same as vehicle cost? Yes. It absolutely would. So a vehicle allowance would be a vehicle cost. Good question. So this next section revolves around revenue. Again, all kinds of confusion on this every year. What revenue was received by the 911 landlines? This is landline revenue. This is revenue sent to your treasurer, to whoever your accounting person is, directly from the providers. AT&T, Pioneer Telephone, Panhandle Telephone, Pine Telephone, yada, yada, yada. So it is revenue that is brought in to your treasurer. We just found out this week that one of our larger PSAPs had been receiving about $17,000 per year from landlines that had been going to the general fund and not accounted for. However, that funding should have been going directly to the trust. So even though you're like, oh, well, we don't get any of those, you might want to ask your treasurer, are we getting 911 revenue from anything, AT&T, whatever, because you may be getting it and it's not going to the proper place. Again, understand your business, understand what it costs to do business and your revenue sources. It's part of it. We can't complain about what we got if we don't understand where it came from. The next is total revenue received from wireless fees. This is the fee money coming from the Oklahoma Tax Commission. You can go to the Oklahoma Tax Commission to receive a report on that fee revenue. So we put that fee revenue on every one of our authority meetings, so that information is put out publicly. So there's easy ways to get to that. If you have questions, let us know. And Stacy's a professional Oklahoma Tax Commission report writer. So yeah. And the other thing is even though you're bringing in 15% on landline revenue, wireless revenue is going to exceed that for everyone. So if you see where the wireless revenue is lower than your landline revenue, you probably got a problem there. You probably need to do a little more research.
The
The other
thing
thing is historically through ACOG specifically, we have had ACOG account for their own revenue on their side, and then the 911 wireless revenue was only the 18 cents provided back out to the PSAPs. We need to account for the landline revenue for the PSAP and the wireless revenue for each PSAP. This is 100% needed to understand the costs as we move forward with future legislation for NG911. We want to provide equity across the entire state, which is very, very difficult to do because of the way we're all set up. And I know Brent's on the call, so Brent, I'm sure you'll have questions, and Mary Harris will have questions also as to the way this works out. So let's talk, and let's talk soon. The next is the total revenue received dedicated taxes or fees. So if you have a dedicated tax, sales tax, property tax, dedicated regional fire tax, that you are actually specifically received $5,000, and it was in the original vote, original ballot language, that you would receive $5,000 of that. This is where it's accounted for. So it's any taxes or fees that are dedicated to the PSAP. All right.
It's not appropriations.
It's not appropriations. It's not what your local government is giving you to survive. This is taxed specifically on a ballot that says 911 gets this much money. Okay. The next one is total revenue for contractor services. So if you provide dispatch services to EMS, like in Midwest City, for instance, you have a contract with EMS to provide dispatch services. This is where that contract amount would go in. This is revenue for those contract services. Norman has the same thing. They've got a contract with EMS. This is where they would put the contract amount in. The next one is appropriations. So let's say you just don't know. I bring in wireline, I bring in wireless. I don't have any dedicated tax. I don't have any contracts. So that's all the revenue I've got. So somebody's paying your bills. So all those bills that cost you to do business, someone's paying for that. And it's going to be in the municipality or the county. So the money that your municipality or county provides you to perform the service would go into appropriations. So this is where you offset the cost. If you don't have your own budget, then you have $1 million worth of bills, and I've only got $400,000 of revenue. That means $600,000 had to come from somewhere, and it came from appropriations. If you don't know any of the other stuff, it came from appropriations. It came from municipal and county governments' general fund tax revenue. That's what appropriation means. So they're appropriating that money to you in the 911 center in order to pay your bills or stay afloat. Okay? You don't get paid just out of fake money. You got to have revenue. The last one is revenue from other sources. This could be grant funding. This could be one-time donations, things like that. So the last piece of this is very important in two ways. So the system automatically totals up your total revenue of $137,690.99. Total expenses of $535,000. Okay? Which means you are $398,000 short. That means that you should have sent everybody home at the first of the year because you couldn't afford your dispatchers. You have not accounted for the overall cost of your dispatch center. So it's going to tell you here, your PSAP expenses do not cover the cost of the income. Does not cover the cost of incoming revenue. So you have exceeded your revenue, and you need to look at that. Call us if you can't figure it out or whatever, but you need to look at that and figure out, why do I not have enough income to pay my bills? Okay, where's that revenue coming from to pay those bills? The other side of that is we don't give a warning for this. But what we do is we come back in and say, we give a total and says, okay, your revenue exceeds your expenses, so you're good to go, right? Oh, we're good to go. It's no problem. It exceeds my expenses.
But if you
if
look
you
at
look
her
at her
example,
we have a total revenue of $137,000 and a total expenses of $4,000. So if you did put $133,000 in your bank account, in a savings account, then you messed up. And you need to go back and look at that. So pay particular attention to this section to ensure that your revenue and your expenses are accurate. And if your revenue is $1 million more than your expenses, most likely, I don't know if any government's going to give you that much money in order to save. Most likely, you've messed up somewhere, and you need to go back and relook at it to make sure that it's close enough. In Norman, for instance, we were on a zero-based budget. They didn't let us save money from year to year. And I suspect that if you're not, unless you're a trust, they're not going to let you save any money from year to year. That's going to go to general fund. Any money that you have left over is going to go back, and you're not going to get a savings account. You either spend it or you lose it. So there you go.
Also, no budgetary revenue. No budgetary revenue. Actual revenue.
Yeah,
actual revenue, no budgetary revenue. So it's actually what the actual cost or what the actual input was into your budget. So actual revenue, actual expenditures.
Okay, the last thing is your budget. When you click on documentation, it'll bring you here. All you have to do is search for that file and find your budget, and you can put that into here. You can drag it and drop it. You can choose a file, whichever you'd like to do. It'll put that in there, and then it'll ask you to choose what information it is after you upload it. Sometimes I think it does in the live site, it may not do it in this site, but if you have, for say, a budget and an audit, it's only going to let you allow one to be uploaded. Right now they're fixing that bug, but right now it'll only allow one. So if you have two, upload your budget for right now, and then if we need to, we can go back and look at whatever else you have, but upload the budget first. If you have a question, say, I don't know which budget it is, look at this, can you help me through this? You can come down here, and also it'll show you here which you uploaded. And say you uploaded something by mistake and it's not the budget, it's not going to let you delete it. You're going to have to ask us and say, oops, I uploaded the wrong one, and we have to get it deleted. So you can select who you're sending it to. You can copy people on it as long as they're in the system. So if you wanted to send it to both Lance and myself, then that would work. Or if you just wanted to send it to me, that would be fine. It's going to drop down the people. Make sure you don't click accidentally Stacy Barlow. She's not here anymore, and it won't get to anybody. But you can put like, oops, wrong budget. Please delete. And you can say that it's on the submission, which is what it is now. You don't have to put anything in there, but we'll create the note and then put it down here. So it will be seen by us. These are the two people that are going to see it. And then if you have a response, or it got deleted, you want to say thanks, it'll put that down here. And my EMGrants will get a notice here. I'll also get an email. And when I respond, you will get an email and a notice here. So that's all there is to it. If you saved it and you need to come back, you can do that after you've done everything. You've uploaded your budget. You can do submit. You can leave a note if you like. You don't have to. But that's an option. I can't type, evidently. It'll send that with it. Sometimes the test site has a bug, but it'll send the submitting. I'll get an email that you submitted it, and that note will also be in here and in your workflow and history. So you can come back and look at that if you have questions. That's pretty much it. I know that seems like a lot of information, but I hope that it will be easier than before. I'm going to open the floor for questions. Nobody has questions? Go ahead.
I know it's been a lot. It's been over an hour and a half now that we've been covering this. It's a lot of information. We'll post this video up on our YouTube page and make sure and get it out to you so you can revisit it if you need to. You know, I know it's a lot. It's a lot that we ask for you guys to do, but it's important to us, and it's important for us to understand where we're at and what the overall cost is. It's not. Why does the police department, fire departments not have to do this? Well, they're 100% funded by local allocations. They're not funded by a portion or a 911 fee that's statewide or even local. So we have to be responsible for what's going on. Plus, we want to be able to work for you at the state level to help improve services at the end of the day. So I see that Debbie Davis does have a question. Debbie, go ahead and unmute if you want.
I just want. Can you hear me? Hello?
Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Debbie,
Hello?
Debbie, you should be unmuted. You can go ahead and ask a question. Or be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
I don't see. Danny, did you have a question?
I could hear Debbie, it's fine, but my question was, once we have all this submitted, is it something that we will be able to print out and have like a quick reference to be able to look at in the future and be able to share with stakeholders, for the purpose of us knowing what we're doing?
Debbie, did you have a question? I tried to unmute you, but I didn't hear you. I put your hand down, so hopefully that would, there you go. You're unmuted now.
Okay. I was wondering for sure if this is 2021 we're doing.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then I also wanted to know, is there a place on there if you received some grant money? Because last time I couldn't find a place, so I didn't put it in there.
You can put it in other under revenue.
Okay.
But Debbie, make sure and put your expenses in for what that covered, okay?
Okay.
If there isn't a line, you can put it in that one where you enter each one. So if you put in, got a CAD or a recorder or whatever, and the cost for each of those, and then offset that by putting in other the amount of the grant.
Okay.
And don't forget, you'll have a local match on that grant also. So if you bought a recorder that cost $100,000, then and we paid for 80% of that, and you paid for 20% of that, your revenue is $100,000 because you pulled 20% out of savings or something like that. So just make sure you account for that, because if not, it'll catch you.
Okay, but wouldn't that already be in some other money that I got, and then I just put the grant money in there?
It may, but most likely it's not new revenue for FY21. It would be pulled from your savings account, which would not be accounted for above, because we don't account for savings accounts. So for you, because you're a trust, you do have the option to save funding and save money. So unless you used budgeted funding that was through yearly revenue, then you would need to pull that over somehow. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So,
but I'm not a trust.
Yeah. So if you're, you get your paycheck at home. Let me walk over here. So this is good for everybody. If you get your paycheck and you have paid, and this is a regular paycheck. I get my paycheck. It's $3,000 for the month, and I pay all my bills, but I can't pay my electric bill. Okay, I'm going to pull that electric bill money out of my savings account and pay the electric bill out of my savings account. So that's what you're doing with grants for your situation, is you're paying that 20% out of your savings account, not out of new revenue. Okay? So you need to account for that. You account for it in appropriations. You pull the money out of savings into appropriations, or you pull the money out of savings, you put it into other, for your matching funds for your grant. That money has to come from somewhere to pay that bill. Okay? So you need to account for that for revenue on the revenue side.
Okay.
Danny, I saw your question, and for the reporting, once you go into your account, you should be able to go in here where it has all the accounts, and most people will just have the 911 information here. And if you click here, you should be able to filter by which one you want if you have grants in there as well.
Up top, you can pull up my spreadsheet.
And then you can click the Excel and you could do custom.
Really?
So you should be able to do every question if you would like to. Or you can pick and choose which, portions you want to pull, and it'll export it like a Excel spreadsheet.
But I guess it has to be submitted before we can export that
It has
Excel
to be
spreadsheet.
saved. It has to be saved. It won't pull up information that isn't entered, but they'll just be blank. At least in my experience, that's how I've seen them. But
Okay.
it will, if you've saved it, then you should be able to pull information from it. But once you've submitted it, you'll be able to pull everything.
Do you or does someone have a blank Excel spreadsheet that has all the various fields? I
It'll
was planning on making one just for my own, not
it'll
for my
pull
own purpose
everything
of like
in.
collecting stuff in the future. No,
It'll
does
pull
anyone have a
everything in.
blank one that doesn't have the answers in it to where, like, I would like to fill all that stuff out on a spreadsheet before I even put it in.
Well, you can do that.
For my purpose.
It'll just bring in yours. So if you open yours, it's just going to bring in that with the questions at the top. And then just delete the answers out.
Yeah, Danny, the best way to do that is use the PDFs that Stacy's been emailing out for several months now.
Okay.
Use those PDFs,
Right.
information from that. It matches this. So.
Okay.
All right. The last thing I want to cover. We've been doing this for a long time. Again, we're here to help. We want to answer questions. Stacy is awesome. She's done a great job on this. But there's another person I would give a little bit of thanks to, and that's Wathena within emergency management, and Heather. They're both in emergency management. I think they're on the call now, and all of their work that they've done working with civics to get this done and accomplished. I know it's hard. I know it's mucky sometimes, but hopefully this will be better for you to be able to save information and come back to it, be able to go into this thing and run reports, being able to see previous year information. Obviously, you can't see that this year because there's no information in, but in future years, you'll be able to see that. So your predecessor will be able to see last year's information and what you put in and things like that. So hats off to Wathena and Heather for all their hard work on this. We appreciate emergency management support. So, and that's all we have.
Does anybody have any last minute questions?
All right.
Okay, well, I will get this downloaded and put out on our YouTube channel. It probably will not hold on our website because it's large, but I'll put the link to our YouTube channel, and it should be there later this afternoon. If you have questions or you want to go back and listen to it, and you can always reach out by email or phone to me. Thanks, everybody. Good luck. Let us know if we can help.
Thank you.